Okay, back on the roof, doing the sheathing or the decking as we call it in the trades. A couple more things that I didn't cover yesterday is cutting when you have to do cuts. Now, some guys, there's two guys, one guy's on the ground, one guy's on the roof, or two guys are on the roof, one guy's on the ground, whatever. And then the people on the roof are calling out measurements, and the guy on the roof is cutting the pieces and then handing them up. I don't do it that way. To me, it's inefficient. I mean, sometimes you got to slow things down to keep your guys busy, so you don't do all the super efficient stuff all the time. But as a general rule, especially if you're doing this for a living, having a guy on the ground just standing there waiting for you to call stuff out, it's kind of a waste of time. So anyway, as I covered yesterday, how I make the sheets available to grab. So what I do is now I've got a couple pieces to cut here. This one was left over from the other side. I'll go over this in a minute. And pieces down there. So while I still have space here to lay out a full sheet and have these sheets that are already nailed in place, holding it there so it doesn't, it's a 412 pitch. It still wants to, go airborne if there's nothing to hold it. So anyway, so what I do is I lay my sheet here. Now I'm going to cut, for example, these two pieces. Okay, so, and then I'll do the same thing down there. I had nailed some sheets temporary because I wasn't able to make these on this side. Normally I would have done these over here and loaded this side from here. Anyway, so I had to walk across the roof, and then I needed to safely get down to get the first, this first row is always the hardest because there's nothing to hold it. Anyway, so I had nailed some temporary sheets here and some temporary sheets here. Just put a couple nails in. I put like 2 nails in. Put them in really well to hold it so that you can walk down it and get down to the lower level instead of trying to balance on the roof rafters. So that's already done. I've been using them now as I go up. So this is the last one. So I put, and you can put more in, but I put 2 in. I leave them up a little bit so I can grab them with the hammer, but I pound them mostly in. And that's enough to hold it in place so you can walk up and down it. It's not going to slip out from under you. Anyway, so that's that. That's if you have a situation where you have to load from the other side and then take the sheets down the slope to start. So anyway, so I lay the sheets out, or lay a sheet out, and I've set my saw blade. Whenever I cut sheeting, decking, whatever you want to call it, whether it's for the walls, floor, the roof, I always set my saw blade so it's just, a 1/16 of an inch or less deeper than the thickness of the material I'm cutting. There's a lot of reasons to do that. You can see here now I can cut these sheets on top of the rafters, and it's not going to affect the rafters. If you just tickle the backs of the rafters a little bit with a cut that's less than 1/16 of an inch deep, it's not going to affect the structural integrity of the rafters. Because some of these pieces I need to cut into 3 16-inch wide, so it's 48, and then I get 3 strips out. And then I do that here because if I was to continue, this row is a full sheet. I've cut it back. So if I was to, and I cut it in place. I mostly nailed it. I left the top loose. I marked a line, and then I just cut it right on top of the rafters. And like I said, so the saw blade is probably tickled the back of the rafter a little bit because I set it shallow. Also, when you're cutting and following a line, it's easier to steer when the blade is just enough through the material versus way down. And this car, if you get off course, it's hard to get it back on and all that. Anyway, so what I did is I didn't want like a 9-inch strip of OSB up at the top. It's a safety hazard. These are 16-inch centers. Certainly, it's a safety hazard if you have 24-inch centers. I covered this yesterday, but I like to leave 2 inches from each edge of the rafter here, or the ridge board, for my ridge vents, since you get a lot of air circulation that way. Some guys run it up a little more. I like to leave 2 inches on each side. Anyway, so that would have left me about a 9-inch strip. Somebody could step there. Even down the road, somebody's up on the roof checking something or whatever, after shingles are installed, and you could step there and possibly break that. 9 inches wide of OSB is not very much. So what I did is I can get 3 pieces that's 16 inches wide out of a sheet, 16 inches wide is plenty strong enough, even if you just stand right here. I'm not saying the 9 isn't, but it's risky to me. So I take the extra time to, I think I cut this one back about 7 inches. What I did is I just measured, I want 2 inches here, so I put this sheet in place, mostly nail it, and then I just took a tape measure and measured down 18 inches, because 2 inches here, and then the 16-inch piece, I measured down 18, I made a line, I cut this piece in place, and then I finished off nailing it. But what I was getting at is, instead of having a guy standing on the ground, cutting your pieces, waiting for you to call out numbers, you can be up here, he could also be up here, whatever, cutting them up here. So like when I have to cut these, I'll be going across the backs of the rafters, and I need to cut the 16-inch wide strips, but I'll just cut it right here. And I'll put them over here, put a couple of nails in to hold them so they don't slide down, and then they're ready when I need them. And then same with these pieces here, and there's going to be 2 on each end, and then another one up at the top, but it'll be out of the 18-inch strip, there'll be a third piece that ends up about that length. Anyway, yeah, so this is easier. Just do it up here. You can work fine. It's safe. Set your saw blade so you're not tearing your rafters up and cutting in really deep. And just do all your cutting up here. It's just faster and easier. There's no reason to have a guy on the ground. Anyway, that's the way I do it. That's the way some framers do it. Some don't. Everybody's different. Like I said, I always look for efficiency, ease of motion, easy on the body. Whatever's easier. So that's a little trick, something to think about. I think that's about it. I mean, there's not much else to cover. I'm not wearing my tool bags up here. That's why I've got nails. I could put a couple of nails in the crack to hold my nail clips. I mean, if I had my tool bag, I wore tool bags for years. I'm just tired of it at this point in my life. I don't care that much. So I just have everything up here. Works fine. I only dropped the hammer once, and I'm almost done with the roof, so that's not too bad. Anyway, yeah, that's it. Back to work.